Hey, everybody, welcome inside the Radio Tech Guys podcast. It's a podcast dedicated to the technology that drives the radio industry. And we're glad you're along for episode number 18. My name is Chris Moran, and I'm joined, as always, by our co host, Alex Linger.
You know, a while back, I was the lovely co host or something like that, I think.
Host from roughly 23.1 miles south in the center.
I like that. That's good.
It's good to be here tonight. Couple of quick notes, housekeeping things before we get started. We'd love to hear from you and get your input on the program and also topics for discussion. And you can get a hold of us by sending an email to ask@theradiotechguys.com. That's available to you always, as are our myriad of social media platforms.
Yeah, we've decided to leave our email address available 24 hours a day. That is a service that we offer to you.
High tech.
You can also find us on Twitter at at Radio Tech Guys. Shoot.
I knew it would get confusing and give us one of these times.
Sorry. Twitter is the Radio Tech. Nope, I just did it again.
Sandwich. That's all right.
Can I just stop the broadcast now?
No. Bad
kill
things will happen. We got to keep plowing ahead.
All right. Are you just going to eat the sandwich like while we do this? No problem at all. I'm going to pick up where I say Twitter, okay? And then we can splice it later. Hopefully. Okay. Here we go. And you can also, all your cameras on permanently. Sorry, let me fix that. Okay, here we go. And you can also...
Oh, has it been the whole time?
No, not the whole time. No.
Okay.
I promise. I
hope
so
wonderful
many people are watching this.
Well, you can tell. You're the only one of us that can see that.
Well, there's 2 viewers currently.
No, there are people.
I mean, 200. What am I saying?
We should, hold on, while we're paused here.
Yes.
We should disclaim for our viewing audience. This is often confused. We don't do a very good job of laying this out. We are recording an audio podcast. That's what we make. We just are also showing us as we record it. Like the stuff that you're hearing right now. Exactly. The stuff that you're hearing right now will not make the final audio podcast. So you have a sneak peek behind the curtain, as it were, into our look. A Wendy's wrapper. I mean, we're going to point that out to me.
Oh, I didn't even notice it. Look, I have an unmade bed behind me. And a piano over here.
For God's sake. All right. So Twitter, let's
here we go. You ready?
There.
Okay, here we go.
I'm going to eat this while you do the social media
All
thing.
Right,
Go.
I'll do it as best I can. And of course, you can find us on Twitter at Radio Tech Guys, or you can find us on Facebook by simply searching for the Radio Tech Guys. You can also find us on YouTube. I don't know how you do that. You just search for us. Search for the Radio Tech Guys, and we've got a YouTube channel with some how-to videos and behind-the-scenes recordings of usually the train wreck of the recording of the podcast. But you can check all that out on YouTube, and we encourage you to do that. And, of course, subscribe to the audio podcast.
Absolutely. Where all podcasts can be found. iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher is where we're located. Hey, speaking of the YouTube channel and the content that we've been promising that's coming, the one big project we've talked about be this installation of an FM translator for an AM station that we're getting ready to put on the air, as well as the replacement of a 35-year-old ERI rototiller antenna. It's an original antenna and transmission line. And that content is coming. We haven't been able to record anything for that yet because we're taking... Yeah, we're going to take a minute at the beginning of this thing to vent about a couple of projects. These are probably frustrations that other people have dealt with. We got stuck in some less than fun structural situations with this tower that we needed to make these changes on. And what started as a seemingly benign process of acquiring a structural analysis and that kind of thing has turned into quite a drama-filled thing. So I just want to say a couple of things about that. We've talked to a handful of certified structural engineers throughout the country to get some ballpark rates on what things should cost. Okay. And I'm not going to give people's rates on the show and do whatever. It's up to you to contact people that you want to do this. But I will say this: when you ask someone for a structural analysis on your structure, this is generally a situation where you just are providing them with some photographs, the tower and the guy wires and where the anchors are, and face width of the tower and what it's made out of, and then where all of its appendages that exist are located on the tower, what they are, where the transmission line is, that kind of thing. And then run a computer model about that, and then give you back the results that say, here's the current situation, here's what you theoretically are going to change to it, and here's what here's where it fails or passes, and then you can go on to talk about, okay, that's a pretty simple thing, and we're talking in the couple of $1,000 range for like a 400-foot guide structure. Let's say if someone ever tells you that you should pay let's say $10,000 for that service, you need to ask a lot of questions. Pay it.
Oh dear. Yes.
Yes. That leads to some trouble. Like, what part of this costs $7,000 that I couldn't have just done myself?
Or what is this guy doing that's worth $7,000 more than this other guy over here?
Right. So just know that you need to be careful, and you should always be practicing diligence of bidding out projects like that. Okay. That's failure number one. So we had a structural analysis done, obviously, and we paid too much, obviously, and now we're fighting that.
What gives that away? What are you talking about?
We're also still moving forward. So the structural analysis found some problems, and we bid out the work. That needed done. Analysis that we got back, and we hired a company to come in, and in their pre-measurement visit, they climbed the structure in question and found what appear to be some fairly significant issues that we need to correct before we can move on. Things like, there's a preform on one of the guy anchor pull off, or the guy wire pull offs at like level 3. We should we're not going to show pictures. There's probably a whole reason we shouldn't do that. But is pretty badly corroded, and is going to need to be a remote thing. And there are some guy wires and one anchor point that are some question about that we need to have looked at. Our point, the frustrating part and the holdup was when we went back and said to the person that we paid $10,000 for this analysis, we said, we paid $10,000 for this, and kind of the expectation was that we would come away saying, these are the things that you need to correct structurally, that we analyze the structure, and these are the things that need fixed. None of and they said, well, it wasn't an inspection. We were assuming the assumptions for this analysis were based on everything being in as new condition. Well, that's fine if what I paid for was like sending pictures and measurements to a structural engineer to run the computer model.
Sure.
I would expect those assumptions for $2,000 or $3,000. Yep. But for $10,000 and 2 guys on site for a day, I don't expect that. I expect someone to say, hey, you're going to have to make these modifications. Plus, you're going to need to look at this and this and this because we found this when we actually climbed your structure and inspected it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
or maybe
when the project actually
gets 2 guys on site, maybe you can just put up a new tower. I don't know.
Like a 4-foot one, perhaps.
Okay, maybe.
But anyway, the whole point is to say that it's going to be a cool project. There's going to be a lot to see, like some actual structural reinforcement as well as these antennas and the translator and everything. Once it starts moving, we're just really stuck right now.
Yeah, and in fact, there is an antenna sitting in our garage right now, so it is going to happen.
We could go show off some of that stuff.
How many bays is it?
That was a 6-bay translator antenna, a Shively that came in today, that we now have to store. We expect it to be further along than we are. We're gonna be in serious trouble when ERI gets our new rototiller done off the thing, and they're like, hey, we've got this 6-bay center fed rototiller to come in. The weighs about 10 times what this little Shively weighs. I don't know where we're gonna put it, but they're just gonna have to keep it for us until we're ready for it.
Yeah.
What's going on with you? Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. That's been on my mind.
No, absolutely. That's That's been a thing around the office for the past few days. Well, weeks really.
Yeah.
Months maybe. Are we doing the like how are yous right now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I like
I'm
your shirt.
fine.
I like your shirt, by the way.
Thank you. I decided to wear it tonight. There's no place like home. And I'm not even going to explain the rest. That's just for those of you watching the video. So see, there is added value. What's new with me? Boy, not much. Not much. Personally,
All right.
it's full bore football time.
Go Steelers.
That's right. See, I've even got Heinz Field behind me. And now I was actually going to move that and put something else up, but now I can't.
Yeah, you got to take it all the way.
All the way. All the way. Everything has to stay exactly where it has been.
Right.
Nothing can move. Nothing can move. How are you?
You know, I'm fine. I'm fine. You know, can I say one more thing? Seriously. Okay, two more. I'm sorry. There's things that I just need to say.
You get it out. Get it out.
So, okay, first of all, before we lose anybody else, I want to ask the question. If we have anybody, we're planning an episode here coming up in the next week or two or three that we want to do about digital radio, some more HD FM. But our interest has been really piqued by a story that we've been following from Norway, where there are 4 big national FM networks just turned off their traditional FM analog transmission and went 100% digital.
I mean, that's a big deal.
Which is fascinating.
That's a big deal.
That's a huge deal. And I'm fascinated to learn some more about it. And we know from some analytics that we do have downloads in Norway. So we're hopeful.
Make no mistake, this is an international show, Chris.
Right. Oh, I know.
It's known around the world.
But to get in touch with our Norway audience. And so if you're there, Norway, and would be interested in helping us put this episode together and potentially even being on the episode with us to talk about your country's way ahead of the game transition to digital radio, we would love to talk to you. So if you could send us an email at ask@theradiotechguys.com, we would love to connect with you and ask some questions and figure out exactly some of the insight. I mean, there's a lot of press releases and things that have come out, some pretty fascinating statistics, like how about in Norway, 74% of homes have digital ready or digital, FM receiving equipment in them already, which is way ahead of us. But yet of a country of what did we say it was, 5 million or whatever the number is, like 2.5 million of the cars don't have it. So there's just I just want to talk to somebody who's like on the ground there and can kind of shed some insight onto how that's working for them.
Which, I mean, from our perspective, that seems like a problem because you listen to radio in your car. In America, I don't feel like we listen to a lot of radio in our homes or, in our businesses. It's in the car. That's where we consume radio the most.
Yep. So I'd be curious. I want to hear about that. The only other thing I'll say before we move on, we're going to talk later on here very shortly about kind of recapping the studio build that we have a couple of videos. We'll link to those down below. The studio went live for us last week. We promised pictures on social media. We took pictures, didn't post them. We'll do that.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that like tonight
when the episode launches. So it'll come out when the episode comes out. And we're going to recap some of the things that we learned, the things we didn't foresee when we were talking about the planning and building of this studio and how we. However, I also want to say one more thing. We're talking all this about the rebuild.
You might as well. Go ahead.
Okay. The FM site here that we've been talking about. So it made me think about this. I want to encourage people who are thinking about FM boosters, on-channel boosters. I want to encourage you to, if you're planning one of these projects, to feel like you're capable of working with your consulting engineering firm that you work with normally for whatever you do to effectively plan, develop a site plan and install these boosters and get them right. There's really some fantastic equipment available now that we didn't have like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago with some of the stuff from Gates Air, the some of the stuff that they offer, the IP link solutions and that kind of stuff. There are a handful of specialty companies who are supposedly specializing in these synchronous boosters, and they're going to try to sell you on some special sauce that is not necessarily something you need to get into. I just want you to know that it is okay to pursue this on your own, and you can definitely, with technology that's available and the software that most of your consulting engineers have now, can really effectively plan a very good synchronous FM booster network and deploy it yourselves.
Yep.
And just feel like you're empowered and equipped to do that without having to go down the road of a specialty group who specializes in that. That's all I'm going to say about that. But that's another thing that I just have to say.
And I think you made the point that they don't specialize in the equipment. You know, the equipment is available to you.
Or the physics of how FM works, because it's been that way for 50 years. So there's you know, I don't want to get into what they own or but you can do it on your own very successfully.
It's like me saying I specialize in macaroni and cheese. So if you buy this off-the-shelf macaroni and cheese and pay me $1,000 a month, I'll tell you how to cook it.
It is kind of like that, but you know what it is even more like? let me okay, that's a great analogy, Alex. Let's say that you said, hey, I know how to make this macaroni and cheese, and you know why the way I make it is better than the way anybody else makes it? And it's because we had a focus group, and we had a bunch of people taste this macaroni and cheese, and we had them tell us what the threshold is of cheesiness that they can tolerate.
Or the amount of time the pasta cooks.
Exactly. These are the criteria. And by the way, we patented that. And so therefore you can buy the Kraft macaroni and cheese from the Kraft brand.
In fact, you have to buy the Kraft. That's the only one that we support.
Exactly. And then you can cook it on your own stove.
Right.
However, we own something that you're going to have to pay us for forever. Did I say too much? I mean, there's it's maddening.
Yeah.
Maddening. So yeah, anyway.
Stick around for future podcasts, because at one point we'll talk more about this. Probably slightly more in depth. But not right now.
Not currently. All right, so I'm sorry about all that. Was too much, but I feel better.
Do you feel better? Are things
like an inverse? This is like an inverse Steam release where we don't give anyone else the opportunity to vent, but they can just listen to us vent about things.
You know, I think a lot of people are on the radio just for that reason.
Yep.
They just need to get it off their chest.
Yep. Well, mission accomplished.
Well, there you go. There you go. All right. So tell me, truly, what's new with you? Is there anything new with you other than you're mad at people?
You know, there's really not. It's been catch up week after vacation.
Yes.
I feel like we've got a lot done. We inaugurated our governor today. Should we talk about that at all?
Can we? Just a little bit? Maybe just a little bit?
Do we have any video? Let me pull up the audio. Do you have the audio handy?
Oh, not super handy.
I'll find it.
Let me say something first. Boy, what am I able to say? I'm a big fan, truly, of the person that we elected. Chris and I and our whole company has gotten to work with him, and I genuinely, he is a wonderful human being. He's kind of the epitome of like down home West Virginia, and take that for what it is. I mean, a lot of people laugh at us and say, "Oh, they're hillbillies," but he's truly just like the down to earth, good human being. But I think a lot of times that comes across as, you know, it just doesn't come across correctly.
Yeah, sure.
So today was interesting. It's going to be an interesting week of inaugurations. Let's just get that straight now. But we kind of enjoyed the ceremony today. There were some funny parts in there that we enjoyed.
I'm trying really hard to find the specific. So at one point, well, I don't know. I shouldn't even. He pulled out an axe and a tackle box, which was.
It was more of a hatchet too, which was even more alarming. He was making a point.
I'm not gonna be able to find this.
He was making a point, and it was truly. I mean, it was a touching story. But when you see the new governor that you don't really know that much about yet at the podium, and he pulls out a hatchet from the podium, I laughed all day because I figured Capitol Security probably went, "Oh my God!"
he said, "Here, wait a minute, I got to show you something." Like bent over, and he was completely hidden behind the podium while he pulled out his hatchet.
Comes up with a hatchet.
It was all right. Good times. Now, that was good. That was good enjoyment for today, and of course, we're looking forward to. Or we're looking.
Easy.
Friday will be the president's inauguration, so that's going to happen. So that'll be exciting. It will be exciting.
50% of us are looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be good times. All right, so let's circle back here. The studio that we wanted to talk.
Hey, you know what? Let's back up. Let's back up for just a minute, because the president's inauguration could bring some radio news our way. There could very well be a new FCC commissioner.
Well,
so we'll just, we'll see.
If there is, we'll talk
about
it for sure. Yeah, we built a studio, and there are a couple of YouTube videos that we did and are posted on our YouTube channel that
very early on
videos that covered some of the Axia configuration. Here's the Cliff Notes, like 15-second version of this studio. What's unique about it for us is that it is in a building in the same town as our existing studios in Morgantown, but it is not. It's an office building. It's corporate headquarters. It's where our corporate offices are, and also a creative video production company that we own. But a radio TV studio, a TV for radio, a radio for television set, basically. We had some really killer furniture that we bought for that purpose that's very much modeled after the Nash FM stuff that's made by Omnirex out of California. We customized it a lot because the unique thing about our situation is the host runs his own board, and so we had to figure out how to get an Axia console in the furniture but hidden from the camera view. And so there's a lot of recessed things happening. We have a split console going on where there's 5 or 6 faders and a phone module over here on the left side, and then a gap in the middle where a monitor well is, where like a touch screen and computer monitors are buried, and then another 4 faders over here on the right. That was a challenge, a design challenge we had to figure out how to work around.
Yep.
Alex had to figure out a connectivity challenge, which was how are we going to extend our Livewire audio over IP network across the town, basically from one site to the other, with the latency that is required and the amount of bandwidth that's going to be required, because really we're going to have 2 or 3 Axia quote unquote studios in that building when it's all done. Ended up leasing dark fiber and lighting it ourselves, so we just literally extended our entire network across this piece of fiber, which was a challenge. All these things went to plan, though. There was no surprises here. Yep. The complexities really started towards the end, I think, of the construction part, or the studio build, where we realized that we don't just do local radio in these studios. We have a 60 affiliate satellite network that we operate, and we have some long form talk show programs that are going to originate from this new studio. So we have things to think about, like how are we going to send serial data strings and relay closures for commercial breaks and IDs and things without actually relay buttons. We didn't want to go there for a myriad of reasons. It's hard to. We didn't know how we were going to get them across. We'd have to go in an Axia device over here into GPI input, and then turn around and physically in the layout. Right? We didn't want to put. Right. We didn't have room to put more buttons in. Really, is a big part of it.
Now, I'm sure some of you are hearing us say that, and you're shocked that we still use physical mechanical buttons anywhere. But we do.
I mean, we do in places. In fact, the network, the series of studios that we're connecting this one to, for the network, for the satellite network head-in, still utilizes this very complicated system of latching relays and buttons that make Conex. You remember the old 8-channel Conex audio switchers?
Mm-hmm.
It makes them do things, and it routes closures. I mean, there's a lot of that physical backbone that still exists for us at our head end, and we could completely automate that with Axie now, and we're going that way.
Yeah,
it just hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, it's one of those "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" situations. As we've put in new things, we've moved towards serial closures as opposed to the mechanical, not serial closures. That's a misnomer, I suppose. But serial commands for the satellite network versus mechanical closures. But yeah, there's still a lot of that left.
Yeah, because we utilize the XDS. Many of you, I mean, just about everyone that's listening to this podcast is familiar with the XDS satellite receiver, Premier. I mean, all of the big networks are using those now. That's what we originate we have our own XDS head end. I mean, our own NMS, our own XDS head end system that we manage and maintain. So really what was happening, Alex, even when we used physical closures at the old studios, those closures were hitting a box in the back that was converting them to serial string to put them into the system. So we're skipping that step.
Yeah.
But what we had to do from the new building, which was crazy, we built these into our automation system. Wide Orbit is now automatically generated, but we didn't have, 2017 problems. These new computers that we're getting don't have serial ports, and it's harder and harder to find cards to go in these computers to put serial on. And then what am I going to do with serial data in this new facility? It's becoming outdated. So here's the crazy route that we took. And it's really kudos to how Wide Orbit works that we were able to pull this off. But back at the old studio building in town, we have several machines over there with serial ports on them, and hanging off of a serial port on these machines is a Moxa serial to IP converter box. Mm-hmm. And so what we were able to do from the new studio is create a workflow that said, when this workflow happens in the automation system, send this serial string, so it would be like our satellite command, send it out the serial port of this machine in the other building downtown, which went into the IP converter, which then sent it back across the fiber to the new building to go through the Air Tools profanity delay and keep it delayed, and then that delay over IP sent it building into the satellite head end and then into the network. There were about 18 different ways we could have a break tone, the end result of an affiliate satellite receiver to fire a break tone. And honestly, that is a great example of the kind of challenges I think that keeps me interested in this job and this line of work, are those kind of critical thinking, like puzzles. Because there were 18 there really were not 18, there were probably 4 or 5 ways we could have done that and still had a closure at the satellite receiver, everything the same. But we had to think through all the pros and cons and really weigh out the cause and effect and the pros and cons of all of them, and then decide on one that was the most efficient and the most effective way to do it. That was a challenge. What else do we have challenges with? You could talk about bandwidth if you want. How are the video stream issue, like how bandwidth management? I mean, that is a challenge. That's a legitimate
challenge. It is a challenge. We obviously have a set amount of bandwidth, like all of you. We have 20 megs of protected bandwidth, and this is protected all the way back to our ISP, and then it hits the public internet at their end. But we host a media server at our ISP's head end that encodes our video programming from this studio. So of course we push across that protected tunnel, but we only have 20 megs, and there's lots of other things that go across that tunnel as well. Voice traffic for all of our IP phones from site to site goes across that. That's marginal. That's not a lot of bandwidth. But all of our radio station web streams, the audio web streams, goes across that. Also not a whole lot. But when you stack all that together, then put a video stream on top of it, you start to worry about quality of service. If we can push all those things and not have a lick of problems, we're only hitting 7 or 8 megs of that 20 meg tunnel. But the minute somebody tries to transfer a file, maybe a large file from one site to another, there is a moment in time where that bandwidth is completely used. We're using all of that 20 meg tunnel. All 8 lanes of that highway are backed up. So quality of service becomes a concern. Obviously, we've had quality of service applied for phone calls since the beginning, but now we have to think about this video stream that has to be flawless. So we have to protect it. So we're actually still in the middle of kind of getting that correct, getting that right. But we'll get that right soon. The idea is basically we're just going to say, hey, anything from this IP address, which in our case, we use a TriCaster, what is it, 8000 series. I don't remember exactly what model it is. We use a TriCaster as our encoder. And we can say, hey, take this machine's IP address, the TriCaster's IP address, and give it priority over all the other traffic. It seems frightening to do that because you risk phone calls and you risk the audio web streams. But in our case, for the 2 hours or 1 hour where that video program is going on, that has to have priority over everything else.
And the good news is that the streams that are coming out of Morgantown, during the business day, there's a 2 hour window. It's 10 to noon. Like the other programs, our evening shows, it's 6 to 7. So the office is not open.
Exactly.
So there are some, and that'll probably be a work in progress. We'll have to trial and error that a little bit and see if we experience. I don't think we will. Like you said, it's only in the case.
I don't think so either.
Where we have a file upload happening that's going across that pipe simultaneously. Yeah. But that was a challenge. Yeah.
And we've, I'm sorry, I'm almost done. We've talked about it on a previous episode. We use, it's a free product from SolarWinds to monitor the bandwidth on these various connections. And basically for a whole workday, that's kind of what I did. I watched the graph of this particular MPLS tunnel, and anytime we saw glitches on the web stream, I could absolutely equate that to a spike in bandwidth, some sort of file transfer. Now, I could have dug a little deeper to see where the transfer was coming from, but ultimately that doesn't matter. We just need to protect the bandwidth that the TriCaster needs to stream the video. So we'll get that all figured out.
Yep. That was challenging. What else did we really run into that we didn't expect? Most of the stuff was expected, right?
Yeah, most of it was. We could probably talk a little bit about how we're doing wide orbit. I mean, we've basically duplicated our old studio. We had a talk show studio where these programs originated from. We've basically just duplicated it into this new studio. So we have 2 separate wide orbit machines running the same log. They're identical logs. And we
or playlist, as Dub Irvin would correct you. We don't have
so sorry
playlists. Shout out to Dub.
Okay, well they're running the same thing on both computers, and that on day one kind of we had to think about that a little bit because if they're both in automatic, that they're both set to advance to the next element when told to, or when hard syncs hit, or whatever the case may be. Some of those elements have closures associated with them. In fact, we mentioned our XDS satellite system. We utilize split copy, which allows different receivers in different markets to play different spots, which is really cool. And from a marketing standpoint, obviously that's huge. You can have receiver A over here. Maybe you're going to play the same spot in both places, but the spot can be a little different to have a different agent's name at the end of it. If you have a car dealership, or I know the example we used was like a tractor dealership that was in both of these locations, but they had different salespeople for each market. Anyway, so we have split copy commands that fire automatically out of the elements in wide orbit. And we had a problem or two with some phantom closures because both logs were running. So we had to, day one was kind of we had to make a list of all the things. Okay, we need to think about this every day.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's fine. That's how that stuff works.
That comes with, and immediately it's okay, two things. Classic fashion. The operator says, this isn't going to work. We can't possibly remember to do this task and this task every day. I said, okay, two things. Number one, we've added an entire new orbit that we've never had to think about by adding another studio outside the mix. Like, there are going to be changes. And number two, there are millions of people who go to work every day who have a task list that they have to follow. Like, if it's part of your job to do this show that you have to do these two things, like put this in auto, drop this off the board or whatever, just do that.
Yeah.
And so ultimately that was the argument that prevailed. It made so much more sense to just do things this way, and people are just gonna have to get used to it. And they are getting used to it already. We're a week into the thing and things are good. Speaking of users, here's a broad overview thing that I thought about this week. No, it's fine. I had somebody call with a problem from one of our markets that they said, oh, this jock can't make outgoing phone calls. Like, the text I got was, this person can't make any outgoing phone calls from their console, from the thing and the thing. Like, incoming calls are working fine. Something's wrong with the outgoing phones. And so we talked about that for a minute, and then I said, have you tried any other numbers other than the one you're calling? And they said, well, no, let me have them try to call a cell phone. And they called a cell phone. It worked for every other number. And they said, oh, there must be something wrong with the number he's trying to call.
Yeah.
So doesn't that just epitomize, though, the user troubleshooting mechanism? Like, couldn't call this phone number.
Clearly the whole system's broken.
Calls. Right. But I mean, that's why it's important, I think, not to necessarily take information at face value and just assume that's the problem. Well, wait a minute. Okay, so you couldn't call this one phone number, but did you try a second number or a different line? Or there are ways of elimination that you go through in troubleshooting anything. And when you don't do that and jump immediately from symptom A to conclusion, I know for a fact from experience that you can get sucked into that. If somebody tells you what the problem is, immediately you can focus on something that's not the problem.
Exactly.
It's very important to meticulously steps that you would take.
Yeah. And I think especially the audience that probably listens to this podcast, I'd say 80%, maybe more, of our job is I don't want to say troubleshooting, but it's the fact finding and the understanding of the problem and understanding where the actual problem lies. We run into that all the time, and I'm guilty of it too. I think we all fall into that trap from time to time. But just like Chris said, the most time you're going to spend on a problem is finding out what the actual problem is.
Right. Yeah. The solving it is most often not the big time consuming part. It's
but taking all the facts and figuring out what is actually fact versus what they think might have happened. And I'm not putting any blame on the users because most of them don't have the technical knowledge. Maybe they should have more. We can argue that all day long, but most of them don't have the working knowledge to say, the technical terms or really describe things as well as maybe they should. But I think that's a big thing. Always remember that. Just focus on getting all the facts first. Don't worry about the panicking jock over here. Just get all the facts, then address the problem.
Yep.
That happens a lot.
It does. Well, because it's a critical thing and they need things to work and they're on the air live and it's
Can I tell a funny story that happened this morning with a user? And by no means am I criticizing this person.
Yeah.
I love her to death, but again, it's the troubleshooting aspect. I didn't even tell you about this, Chris. I got a phone call this morning and the user called and said, actually I got a voicemail from her, said, I've got a major problem with my computer. Call me as soon as you can. So I did. I called her back, and she said, I've got a big issue here. My screen's black. The power light on the computer tower is flashing. And she said, but the little light on the monitor's lit. And I said, okay, well, that doesn't matter. But I said, immediately when I heard the flashing power light, I hearkened back to the older Dells that we have. When the power supply goes or the motherboard, you get a flashing amber light on your power button. So I said, what color is the power? What color is that light? What color is flashing? And she said, well, it's white. And I thought, okay, well, it's not one of those old Dells. It must be one of the newer. We have some Lenovo's out there that have white LED power buttons. And she said, should I just hit the power button again? And I kind of laughed and I said, well, you're not going to hurt anything. Go for it. So she did. And the computer turned on because it was asleep.
Yeah.
And everything was good. So that's good. But kind of the same situation. You know, you get all the facts, then eliminate the easy stuff.
Those are the best. Those are the best.
Yeah.
I went round and around. We could tell these stories all day. I went round and around the other day. Had a user call. We have in our new studio, actually, the PC workstation that's in there has the Axia IP audio driver. There's no sound card. It's just using the IP audio driver. And they called and said something happened. We can't play any audio out. We can't get any audio on the board. So
it worked a few minutes ago, but then it stopped.
Yes, it was working, then it wasn't working. And so I pulled that source up on the board in our office, on the Axia test console that's in our office, and I confirmed didn't have any audio. I'm remoted into the computer, and I'm like, what the heck? This all looks good. I saw audio and Windows Sound, it had the Axia Livewire as its default playback source. There were levels there. I thought, well, it's making it to the sound driver of Windows. The default device is selected Axia. And so I opened the Axia IP control panel. Everything is good. I am just like, what in holy? And then I look over, and I sent you a screenshot. I look over in the taskbar, and I see the volume control in the taskbar, and it's got the red circle with the line through it. And I was like, I told you this, yeah. So the sound card's muted. Somebody clicked it, or there's a shortcut. The problem is we have these Bluetooth keyboards, and it has a volume up, down, mute button on and people keep hitting the mute button is what's happening, and it's muting. So. But it took me, again, this is embarrassing. Like, we're professionals. Like,
that's what happens.
It took me probably 20 minutes of work on that before I even looked and saw that the volume was muted.
Yeah.
Now, others, I'm telling you, here it is again. This is my bias towards problems we've seen before. There are others that are listening to this podcast would say, well, the first thing I would have done was check the Windows mixer. And you're exactly right. Right? I mean, like, that is... In our set of circumstances, in our troubleshooting steps, in our history of problems, that is not the first thing that I think about when I think about these problems. It's typically it's Livewire. It could be,
you're conditioned for the big issues. You're conditioned for big problems.
Exactly. So I skipped the simple steps that would have been the most logical, really, and the quickest to check, like glance at the taskbar. Oh, there it is. Like, that could have been about an 8-second problem.
Yeah.
But it's troubleshooting is there's an art to that.
Yeah, there is. There absolutely is. And circling back around a little bit, you talked about the issues we had with the checklist and people complaining about the workflow. It's funny. I think the radio industry has kind of shot itself in the foot. We have automated everything and made it. This is for lack of a better term, we've made it idiot proof, because typically the radio station just runs on its own. Typically you don't intervene. Whereas in the old days, it was all intervention. You constantly, we're changing carts, or God forbid, changing records, or, whatever the case may be. And I think what's happened, I know what's happened is people have forgotten how to run anything because they don't have to.
Right.
When they're asked to do that, it becomes an issue. So it's, not completely their fault. It's not stuff they're used to. I took flying lessons for a long time. Well, okay, a while, and was going to get my private pilot's license. I still will one day. Let's go on the record there. But anyway, you have a checklist that you go through before you start the engine of that plane. And in the early days, that checklist took me half an hour to go through, but then eventually get used to it and it takes you less time.
Sure.
It's just part of the job. That's what you do.
No doubt. Hey, let's say, I want to say a couple things.
No.
I know, right? I saw an episode of This Week in Radio Tech with Kirk Harnack. Was it last week or the week before?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. They had a guest on with them who's also a friend of ours, Jeff Holdenrid from Double Radius in New Bern, North Carolina. Double Radius specializes in IP microwave links, which is a topic that is definitely, if you've watched the show at all, historically very near and dear to our hearts. And we need to probably reach out to him. He was actually on our short list for guests a while back. We want to circle back around with him in the coming weeks to talk about IP radio links for broadcasters specifically. He's been doing that. He really specializes in the broadcast industry. So I think he'd be great to talk to about what's new out there, what's new in the world of IP links, and how they're helping broadcasters with that.
He's a big Ubiquity dealer as well, so he can speak to all of those cool little links that we've talked about recently.
Exactly. Yeah, very cool stuff. So we're going to reach out to him and talk about that in the coming weeks. Really want to do a little bit more in-depth piece on the Norway digital radio conversion. So again, if you're from that region or have some expertise in what Norway has done, what their plan looked like, reach out to us this week if you could by emailing us at ask@theradiotechguys.com. We want to get that going in the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully we'll be able to jump into some of this tower stuff. It's a horrible time of year. We found ourselves here in maybe the dead of winter trying to do this construction stuff, but I do think that's going to be a great series. That'll be some fun stuff to shoot too, outdoors and guys on towers, and we'll probably even put the drone up. So I'm a licensed Part 107 UAS pilot. Thank you. We can legally commercially use that for that application to kind of get a bird's eye view on what they're doing on the tower while they're up there, which I think will
cool.
be
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that series coming up here in the coming
or
weeks.
We could deliver tools to them.
I mean, we'll see how daring this crew is. From initial reactions, they're not going to veer too far outside of the safety recommendations, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with that.
It'll be a good time though, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it, I think. What do you got? Anything else?
Oh, let's see. What am I angry about? Anything? I don't know. I'll save it for next week.
Fair enough. I think that's enough venting for 1 week.
That's all good. It's good.
Well, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to the audio podcast on the iTunes Store, Google Play Store, on Stitcher, and also our YouTube channel, youtube.com. Search for the Radio Tech Guys, and don't miss a minute of the exciting Radio Tech Guys action.
Hey, are we on TuneIn? Did that ever happen?
Yes, also on TuneIn. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So on your Amazon Echo, listen to us on TuneIn.
Yes, we are there. Definitely. Yep. All right. Thanks, Alex.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Oh, that was sorry about that.
We'll talk to you all next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.